Leaving Springfield about 8:51, headed for central, maybe northern Illinois. I'm fueling up here in Springfield. You know, luckily the gas prices are low. Oh my gosh, bad timing. Anyway, getting ready to leave town here shortly as soon as the tank is full. Well, I'm on my way. So I'm leaving Springfield, Missouri and going, I think initially to Springfield, Illinois. It's about a 5-hour drive, a little less. And that'll be when I get more gas, reevaluate, set up the rest of my chasing equipment. And then, of course, we're going to look at the weather. But the gas prices are not as bad as they are in central Illinois. Wow. Incredible. All right, well, while I was driving up to Illinois, the Storm Prediction Center upped their tornado probabilities. That area of red is now a 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles. And that just runs right north of Springfield, which is where I am now, and up into places like Bloomington, Normal, Peoria, and over into Indiana. Southern suburbs of Chicago are included in that. Notice there's a very sharp boundary. That's the front. So these supercells are going to develop. A lot of those are going to be after dark, but some of them are going to be a little bit earlier than that, I think. And on the left side or west side of that outlook area, more where the yellow starts is where I'm thinking. All right, now we're looking at the mesoanalysis page. And so if you see the green, that is very, very high dew point values. When you see the temperature gradient and the dew point gradient right there, where the color stops and all those red lines are crushed together, that's the warm front. That's going to be a big player today, as will, I think, that little meso low, small low that's developing right around St. Joe, Missouri. I think that's going to move along the front, probably enhance the low-level fields out in northeast Missouri where these storms originate. That's why my thinking is to go a little bit more north into Illinois and then maybe cut back toward Davenport. I think that's Highway Interstate 74, I believe. That might get me closer to some initiation that decides to form before dark. That's always the thing. You know, I want to try to get the maximum potential before dark. I'm not a real big fan of chasing in dark. If it's obvious, I might, but I'd sure like to get those during somewhat, some part of the daylight hours. One more thing we'll look at here, and that is the visible satellite loop. So what you're looking at in the center of the screen is where Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois meet right there. So you got Quincy, Hannibal, Ottumwa, all in the frame there. I can't turn the cities on, and the lines are instability, so that's building. But what I'm looking at are those CU fields. Now, any of those that go north of the warm front are going to be hail producers, but probably not tornado producers. So I'm going to have to watch this very carefully as I start to drive. I'm going to be on the right side of the screen here, driving up toward the upper left. So I'm going to be watching that field very closely over the next couple of hours. All right, let's update this here a little bit. We've got that on the HRRR, thunderstorms from my current location in Galesburg. I'm recording this around 4:44 to the northeast. A couple of supercells likely buried in that. So I'll probably want to venture northeast here a little bit in anticipation of that, or maybe just due north in anticipation of that, because that will have formed in sometime in the hour previous to this map. So that's looking pretty good. We're under a tornado watch now. I am literally right on the boundary. We can take a look at some things here. Like if you look for here, Galesburg is that observation right there. I am literally where the cumulus clouds stop, just south of there. So that's a convergent zone. That's where other supercells, if they fire, would stay on that line, and they may go ahead and take the lion's share of low-level rotation along a boundary, which would be good for tornado production, not good for the residents around here, of course. The dew point in Galesburg is 70. It's one of the highest dew points of all the surrounding stations. You'll notice and temperature is 80. And if you noticed up there in Moline, temperature is right around in the 50s, and the dew points are down in the lower 50s, almost in the upper 40s. So I definitely found the boundary, and I'll probably sit tight. In the evening, the winds tend to back a little. There is a weak area of low pressure that's forming, and if I took a look at the mesoscale analysis, first of all, the significant tornado parameter is pretty high where I'm at, which is right about where that 3 is, a little bit to the right of that. And that's pretty good. And just generally speaking, if we just look at instability, the Cape values are anywhere from 3 to 3,000 to 3,500, looking really good. Well, it's fascinating. I went about 10 or so miles north of Galesburg, and the temperature dropped about 15 degrees, and the wind's out of the north here. So I found the boundary, not that I didn't think it existed. But if you see behind me here, it looks like we are getting a little bit of development. It's just after 5 here, so it's trying to push that cap, and that I think would mark the boundary. So here's the other camera view. That's looking southeast to me, so there's definitely a boundary there. I definitely will be heading back. And you know, I showed you that radar earlier. It's not the end-all be-all of accuracy when it comes to where storms will form. At this point, you're looking at the sky, so that's one potential area I'd be looking at there, that towering cumulus cloud there, and perhaps some other ones back here to my southwest. So this is all along that convergence line, the front. So you just have to watch very carefully and see which one is going to be the premier developer. And there probably will be several, but it'll just take keeping a close eye on the sky at first, and then a close eye at radar. Well, you know, I went sniffing around for the boundary. I did a video on that, and I went northeast of Galesburg, and I found cold air and northerly winds. So I'm trying to identify which storms are moving north of that boundary, which will be hail producers, but probably not long-lived tornado producers. I then traveled west to Monmouth, Illinois, and I looked northwest, and sure enough, I saw a wall cloud in the distance. It looked pretty good. It even had a little tail cloud feeding into it, but I was convinced it was traveling into cold air. I didn't see the radar at the time, but it looked like this, and you can see on the right screen that little green area, that little blob, that's rotation being detected to the west-northwest of Monmouth, where I was. I actually traveled north out of Monmouth for just a little bit to try to see that, but lost it quickly, and then I decided it was going into cold air and probably wasn't worth pursuing. Well, as it turned out, this particular cell did fire a tornado at 7:30. That's about a half hour after dark. It was pretty well far to the east of Galesburg, which is on the left bottom corner of your screen there. I didn't pursue it. It would have been after dark. I think at that point I was trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do with this storm chase, probably thinking about terminating it at this point. So a lot of interesting lessons about storm chasing here. My theory is that eventually this storm turned more to the right and did find the boundary, which I think ended up being a little bit more east-west at that point. If I had decided to pursue it, would I have seen a tornado in the dark and with the poor backlighting? Probably not. But storm chasing continues to fascinate me. You make a lot of quick decisions in the field and hope that they're the right ones. Then, of course, there's this storm. I'm sure you've seen it in social media and on the news. It's the one that produced the record 6-inch plus hail. All those red dots on the left side of your screen are Kankakee, Illinois. And those are all hail reports of at least that size. And, of course, the hook echo is classic. It's about 7:30 at night. So again, it would have been a chase after dark. I may have gotten my windshield blown out by hail that big, which I don't really want. But there's always chase decisions to be made. Maybe for the better. I don't know if after dark I would have seen anything on that one either, but it sure was one heck of a storm that did find an east-west boundary, rode along it, and made the most of it. So the logic about boundaries was certainly sound.